Hi, everyone. This is Gary Berman, host of the Cyber Hero Adventure Show, with an extra special guest today, Nic Chaillan, the founder of Ask Sage and the former chief software officer for the U.S. Air Force and for Space Force. And we have a lot to go over, so we're just going to jump in. Nic, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again. Good to see you.
Indeed, I'm really honored that you decided to come back again. You didn't have enough the first time.
That's right. Always need more.
And you wrote something in a post that really touched my heart, was you said it should be fun. How do you make the complexity of everything that's happening right now fun? Oh, I think we lost Nic 1 second.
No, don't know what happened. The StreamYard restarted on my side. I don't know why.
No, we're good to go. So that here, what I'm saying is, how do we make
it just restarted itself? Whatever. I don't know. I got kicked out and logged back in. So, anyways, I'm back. So,
well, so it sort of answers, my question: how do we make something like this fun?
Here we go. We make it fun like this. We disappear and come back.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's key to sometimes laugh, but I know we talk about very important topics, but I think it's also important to for my ego that's big enough already, right? So I think it's good to have fun.
Yeah, indeed. And so let's start with, this very recent news, since, you and I speak about national security, and I know you're steeped into the ecosystem. So it's now widely reported that some very senior people in the intelligence community were using a signal and, inadvertently included a journalist in the chat, where apparently war plans, were discussed and then subsequently implemented. What's your knee-jerk take on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of issues, right? We often don't have the tools. So you have a lot of people coming from industry into the government recently, particularly, and I remember the feeling, right, when I started in DoD, and it's like going from the most advanced, innovative space that I was in to maybe the least innovative IT space in the Pentagon, right, where you get completely disconnected from real life. You don't have access to all the tools you used to use to be efficient, to be able to move at the pace of relevance. And so it's always tough for people to get adjusted, right? Of course, Signal is not accredited for CUI or even higher classification levels. It is allowed for Impact Level 2, public data and just normal chit chatting, I guess. But we do have tools for with Mattermost and Wicker and others to be able to chat at different classification levels. But then also there's a matter of the phone, what device was used. Is it a government phone? Is it a phone that's able to handle classified data or not? And it's very confusing for people that are not used to handling it. And we need to do better. But we also it goes back to what kind of tools are we giving to people, and you end up in this shadow IT kind of situation. When people ban technology, or they just or the leadership fails at bringing those tools to the masses, you end up with people on Facebook. And you wouldn't believe what I've seen in the building with warfighters deployed. They got to get stuff done. They got to do it right, and we're failing them by not bringing them all these tools that they need to do business, and they end up having to do what they got to do. That could be Signal, that could be Facebook Messenger, which is even worse. There's a lot of nonsense when you don't have the tools to get your job done, and you got to get it done. So usually that points back to the lack of leadership at the CIO level for the enterprise at providing the right tools to get the job done.
Indeed. And, there was a briefing, I think maybe about a month ago, put out by the Pentagon, specifically saying don't use Signal,
Right.
So I guess they were trying to, avoid a problem, before it happened. Well, let's move into the question of tools, because, one of the most exciting things from my perspective is to be able to kind of track the progress of Ask Sage. But for our audience who may not be familiar with what you and Amanda, your wife, have co-created, why don't you give us a little background on it, and we can dive into some of the tools.
Yeah, so Ask Sage was founded 2 years ago now to bring Gen AI to the government, and again, it started with the same logic that we just discussed. I knew that if I didn't do it, no one would be bringing Gen AI at the pace of relevance to the department, and I knew the barriers to entry. I knew how tough it was going to be to get it accredited. I knew how tough it was going to be to get training done. How to make sure people understand it's not just a gimmick, but it can actually change your velocity of work in contracting, cyber, ATO, DevSecOps, coding, you name it, right? Any non-blue collar jobs sees drastic increase of velocity of people using Ask Sage. And so I knew how much it changed my life on a day-to-day basis. And for me, it was probably the most impactful technology of the last 25 years on my day-to-day life. And I've yet to even, see anything that can compare to this, not even like cloud or like whatever, right? So it's pretty insane, when you think about it, to have that kind of increase of velocity. And I knew I had to bring it to the DoD. I knew I had to bring it to the civilian side and the IC. IC is doing usually pretty good at adopting tech. They know how to get stuff done, but I know DoD can get out of his own way, and the bottlenecks are tremendous. And we got it done, and we got 14,000 government teams now on Ask Sage, 27 agencies. Increased velocity of coders from 1 to 35, acquisition teams 1 to 50. So one contracting officer turned into 50 people for $90 a month. And that's the thing, right? We put the barrier to entry to a point where it's non-existent. I mean, literally, you can use a credit card to buy an account at $90. And $90 is about 10 people. So $9 a user. I mean, come on, there's no DoD product that's so easily accessible and inexpensive, and brings a bigger return on investment. So that's been mind-boggling.
So, one of the unique aspects of the progress that you've made in a relatively short period of time is, certification like FedRAMP and other things that they're not easy to get. Why don't you share with our audience, how did you accomplish that at the pace that you have?
Not only we've done it at a pace that's been unheard of before, but we did it for a cost that's never been heard before either. We did our package for FedRAMP High and DoD-R5. We were only 2 employees, which has never been done before. I've done the entire package myself. Usually you have 100+ people involved. It takes 2 to 3 years, a couple of $1 million investment. It cost us $250,000 total to do the entire thing.
Wow.
We did our ATO package with Ask Sage. In fact, 90% of Ask Sage is built by Ask Sage already on the code base. But then you take my ATO package. We did it in a week to generate it for $2,500. I had a quote from a 3PA to do it, in 6 months for $300,000. We've done it and that's Nic's price, by the way, right? I get good pricing. Most people would probably pay $500,000. So we saved $500,000 right there. We saved 6 months, which again is millions. We got a product that was 98% accurate. I had to spend a week to read it and fix it. So a week to generate it, a week to read it. And in 2 weeks, I had my full ATO package. And then we had, the assessment and pen test and audit done. And, then, we did it all in 7 months, which is unheard of. Usually it takes a couple of years. And, we did DoD-R5 as well with DISA. And then we did also secret and top secret as well. So pretty unheard of.
That is unheard of. And, congratulations to you and the team. And so what's the next step for implementation? I tested the system myself. It's great. There's a term that I very fondly use called easy peasy. In other words, it's incredibly intuitive and easy, easy to use. What about implementation or spreading this out throughout the Department of Defense and the government?
It's getting rapidly. We're probably the most used product today in DoD by far. We probably got 150,000 users now in DoD, 27 agencies, and part of it is multifaceted, right? One is, you're right, we try to make it as easy as possible. I still, think it's not as easy as it should be, but we're abstracting the complexity. We support 150 models. We have Google, Meta, OpenAI, Anthropic. So we had to do all this abstraction, all this work to allow teams to ingest data once and be able to tap any model, do it securely with need to know, control with zero trust, who access their data and when and how, at what kind of data they grant access to on a very granular basis. So you can ingest your data, you can train Sage on what it is you're doing, and then you can tap any model based on what's best for you to get the job done. And, I think it's super important for the government to be cloud agnostic and model agnostic, so you're not getting locked in to any company. We don't know who's going to win. Nobody knows. Everybody's betting, right? But you don't want to be locked in. And the more you ingest into stacks that are cloud specific or vendor specific, that only allow one model or one, OpenAI or Google, pick it, doesn't matter, right? You get locked into tremendous degree. And then having to move or to re-ingest your data is completely insane. And so, I built the product on day one to be able to run anywhere, on any cloud, air gap, edge, disconnected, backpack, whatever, you need, all the way to, gov clouds and top secret clouds, and then tap any model, but yet have the ability to ingest your data once and then have access to all of this, and then be able to build, plugins and agents to automate tasks to get stuff done. And so we did coding plugins, we did accreditation. So when I saw the value of Sage to build my ATO package, we created ATO in a box, we created FedRAMP in a box, and CMMC in a box to automate and bring this to companies and the government, honestly, because the government does a ton of ATOs. And so they have access now to the same tools I use to do my package. And now we can take a 6 months, ATO package, paperweight nonsense down to, 2 weeks, a month, saving, billions. And by the way, RMF in DoD is probably, I would say, no one knows, but my educated guess as the former chief software officer is probably in the $50 billion range.
Oh my gosh.
Just on paper cyber nonsense, which is, by the way, is not security, and is certainly not helping us pass financial audits, right? Which we failed to do for years. So, having these tools easily accessible, at a cost that's never seen before, many AI companies, it's $5 to $100 million to say hi, right? Just to get on contract,
Well, also, I mean, obviously the defense industrial base, I mean, there are what, 350,000, suppliers in the how many?
400,000.
So 400,000 in the supply chain, any of which can be a vulnerability, as we've seen, with previous hacks like SolarWinds and things like that. So how are you planning to, if you can disclose, to roll out Sage to the larger defense industrial base?
Yeah, so we created a tenant that's FedRAMP High. It's a requirement of CMMC. And by the way, we have CMMC in a box too for companies that need to comply to the government regulation to accelerate their compliance. So, they can use it too. And we have about 2,500 companies now already using Sage in the DIB, Defense Industrial Base. But, that's barely scratching the surface of 400,000 companies. And most of it is because people don't know. There's a piece of it that's a little concerning, right? Which is a lot of companies are on contract with the government as a time and material contract, where they charge time to the government to do work. And one of the concerning message I hear too often is companies saying, well, I don't want to go faster. Your product is going to make me, save time, but then I charge less money to the government.
Right.
And that's just the wrong way of thinking, right?
It is sign of kind of oxymoronic, actually.
Yeah. Right? And it's not going to fly anymore. Number one, with this new administration. Number two, you want to be leading the pack on this. The people that don't jump on this are going to be the one getting terminated and, not on contract anymore. The government is going to see your velocity. They're going to see how fast you do work compared to others. So when people start adopting it and you go 50 times slower than somebody else, that's not going to stick, right? It's also short-sighted. It's not going to work long-term, right? So I think, people need to embrace it. The first one jumping on this are going to, they're going to be able to lead the pack. And look, there's cuts happening all over the place. People are tired of paying, time and material. They want to get outcomes and fixed price. And so I think there's going to be a lot of push for that. And I think the people that disrupt this, and usually it's a middle tier, right? The top tier, they have a tough time because, they're like, afraid of shooting themselves in the foot and cannibalizing their own sales. But it's going to happen, right? So it's just a matter of who is going to lead the pack and who is going to get this done at scale.
Well, that's an appropriate, one of our viewers, Mike Davis, you can see his comment on the bottom. What do you think about what he wrote there?
Well, I appreciate Mike is very kind. I think it's important to hold people accountable, and I think too often people get away with it. And I have a lot of people reaching out to me on LinkedIn saying, hey, thank you for saying out loud, what I can't. Well, I tell them sometimes, well, number one, you can too. I'm not the only one that can. Maybe you need to grow some courage to do it. But I get it. Not everybody is willing to lose money and lose business to say out loud things that needs to be said. But I do. I don't care. I made enough money, I guess. But I think it's important, because this ecosystem is a self-sustained bubble, and that was always shocking to me. You have two bubbles in the United States, and if we don't pop them, the country is in trouble with China. There's number one, the Silicon Valley bubble. I call it the Kumbaya bubble. They don't understand real life. They don't know what's going on in the world. They live in this parallel universe, Club Med, whatever. And then you have the DoD bubble, which I call the complacency bubble. And that's not good, right? There's no urgency. There's no pace of relevance. They don't know what competition means because we actually never compete. We don't actually compete because we're not fighting, right? If you went to war tomorrow with China, then you would know who has the best capabilities, right? But if you don't, and it's just like, we have these jets and the things and weapons, but we never use them in real life, and we don't really know what's going to happen. That's easy to feel like, I'm strong, but you don't actually know if that's true, right? Until you got to do it, and that's
this reminds me. Forgive the interruption, but you reminded me of an interview I did with a senior intelligence official, and he said China knows more about our software systems than we do.
Yes.
That kind of just exploded my brain.
More than that, right? Because they steal the IP from the government. They steal the IP from the companies in the US. And they have their Chinese company ecosystem where, because of their, access to everything, and they don't go and ask, which I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, by the way, but they don't have the wall that we have, where we have, Silicon Valley companies innovating, refusing to engage and partner with DoD because of, nonsense, usually extreme left, kind of way of thinking. And that's not good, right? Because you don't get access to best of breed. So, people always compare China to the US when it comes to innovation. And it's, China is behind us in AI or whatever, right? The fact is, what they miss is that might be true that U.S. companies are still leading, but the DoD has no access to it, to the U.S. companies. And what that means is, while the U.S. as a nation is leading on paper, the government and the Defense Department is not, and is far behind where China has access to their best of breed Chinese company, and they steal the U.S. IP. So and you're competing against the governments here. It's not just companies, right? And so people miss that. And when I raised the alarm when I left DoD to say, hey, we are behind China in quantum compute, cyber, hypersonics, AI. We are, right, by far. Maybe not the companies, but the government is. And at the end of the day, DoD matters, right?
Yeah, and that really tracks with a book I just finished reading, a wonderful book for our audience called The Technology Revolution by one of the co-founders of Palantir, Alexander Karp, and he lays out precisely the history of why the DoD and the private sector just can't get along with one another or play nice, or what are the incentives associated with it. So for our audience, keep an eye out for that book.
And by the way, that was all orchestrated by China. Then they infected our schools and universities from within. They were very smart on doing that for 20, 30 years, and we're paying the price now, letting them do this and infecting our kids, brains with all this, anti-America, racist. We're a bunch of racist idiots, right? Nonsense. And that's sad to see, because that's why a lot of these kids now refuse to, work with the Defense Department. And Silicon Valley was created by DoD, and yet we don't have access to most of it today. It's pretty sad.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the innovations came from DARPA,
right?
So we have a question. How are you moving towards agents and AI?
Yeah, so funny. We started building agents very, very early. I think it's probably the most impactful capability that that anyone could ever use. We have a bunch of agents that we've built in coding and cyber, and in fact, ATO in a box is an agent, and all these products are agents, very complex agents behind the scene. We abstracted to make it simple, but it's what it does. We have a big release. I'm going to give you a little breaking news here for you. Where
I've never had a scoop before. All right,
give you one. In about 2 weeks, we're going to release what we call a deep agent, which is kind of a mix of the OpenAI deep search feature, where they go and search the web and do reports or advanced, iterative search, and go collect data, go research in multi-step agent, decision trees, and go pull this, go do that, right? And so OpenAI built this capability to search the web. We not only have the web search, but we also have it with the company's data, and so of the government, data. So companies, whatever. And so the way this works is a deep agent that we called for Ice Age is able to tap both the web data and your company data to go do research. And you can activate or deactivate which you don't want to use. If you don't want to use the web, you can deactivate it. And then it's going to be able to do deep, research, analysis, study, right? Multiple step processes to go and collect insights, get feedback. So you could use it for market research. You could use it, complex coding issues, analysis, right? Whatever. So we do have pretty advanced agent capabilities already. A lot of customers can build agents on AskAge. We have an SDK they can use to build their own agent. We also have an API that they can use as well, and tie to existing agentic open source stacks as well. So sky is the limit. That's going to be the future. And the goal of Ask Sage is to accelerate the adoption, because what you see, you know, when people get started in Gen AI, maybe they start first with, you know, basic chat questions. Then on Ask Sage, they're going to be able to do some data ingest with their data and train Ask Sage with RAG on their data. And then the next step is maybe connecting databases and data lakes to Ask Sage. We have connectors, you know, to GitHub, GitLab, you know, Postgres, MongoDB, Elastic, you name it, where you can go and pull your data live. It's not stuck in time data anymore. It's, you know, you can ask a question and the bot is going to go query your database or your data to get you the response back. And so the bot acts as a developer in that case to write a query to get the response back to you. And then, you know, next level is using plugins and agents that we already have built, that already are off the shelf. Like we have a coding plugin that goes, you know, scan a Git repo, look for cyber issues, performance improvements, you know, commenting code, doing documentation, all that. And it's able to, you know, iteratively go to your source code and create a pull request with all your changes, all the fixes, all the documentation. So all these plugins can be consumed as is, off the shelf. And then the next level is, you know, building your own plugin and creating your decision tree, whether it's human steps, AI steps, Gen AI steps, coding, traditional coding steps. The bot can iteratively, you know, do a decision tree. If this, do that, else do this, right? So you can teach it what would be a half day or full day of work of someone to accelerate their velocity, whether it's in acquisition, coding, cyber, you know, you name it.
Wow,
We got it.
that's pretty
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Jeff Kinney, as you see on the bottom here, had a question regarding a small business, you know, and Ask Sage. Is it easy for small business people who, you know, are not technologically savvy?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's, you know, you gotta have to learn it. I mean, particularly if you're a marketing agency, if you don't learn this AI stuff, you're gone in 3 years top. I mean, you know, we don't have a marketing agency anymore because Sage is a marketing agency. I mean, you know, so if you're in marketing and you have to learn it. Number one, whether we like it or not, I don't care, but that's a fact.
How long? How long? It's probably impossible to answer, but like just on average, how long would you say it would take a, you know, someone
someone
who's
to
not
learn.
tech? Yeah.
I mean, for marketing stuff, it's a month. You know, we have 12 hours videos. You know, don't watch TikTok videos and watch a bunch of Sage videos, and you'll be all done in you know,
Okay.
2 weeks. You know, it's not rocket science. It's scary. You know, the issue is it's scary. You know, people are like, wow, you know, this stuff is doing all my job. What am I going to do? And what people need to understand is, you know, 90% of the job may be automated. The 10% is the key. And what is the 10%? The 10% is your brain guiding and orchestrating the AI to go to the right direction. I use Ask Sage for every business decision. Everything we do at Ask Sage, even our logo, everything we do is built by Gen AI. But it's directed and you know, the vision and kind of the you know, the direction is driven by me, and so you become the orchestrator of the you know, this magical you know, set of tools. And so it's all about, you know, because you could take it to the wrong direction. And sometimes I bounce ideas. I'm like, okay, give me 5 course of action to achieve X, Y, and Z. And I have my own opinion, but I don't give it to the bot. And I see I might head it the right direction. Is there a better idea? What could I do? And so there's a way, right, to also not be stuck in your own little bubble. Because, you know, as an entrepreneur, we always think we're right. You know, we always have big egos, and that's part of the, you know, to be a good entrepreneur, maybe you need some ego. But again, you also need to be able to bounce ideas and see what sticks. And I think it's a great sounding board to be able to ask questions and see what makes sense.
So here is a, you know, a relevant question to that. You know, how is the DoD leveraging AI literacy? You know, in terms of the warfighters and decision makers. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
incredibly important question.
Yeah, I don't think they are. Honestly, I think what's pretty sad, right, is the department during the last administration spent probably $1 billion, maybe $2 billion, in 4 years on ethics study, right? They have not spent a dime on AI capabilities, on real training. They train people on how to be scared of it, and ethics and DEI, right? There was no anything training on, okay, you can be, cautious, but you can still use it and you can still do X, Y, and Z. So they failed miserably at educating the war fighters. Unfortunately for us, we got a lot of smart people in the department, and most of these people learn on their own. So there was no top-down approach from most agencies, except maybe the Army. Space Force was dumb enough at the time to ban it, for a year, and ban it even with public Google data, which is unheard of. That never happened in the history of DoD. For a service that's what's supposed to be born to be innovative, and the new shining DoD team of the department ends up banning the most innovative tech stack on the planet. I mean, tell you how short-sighted those people were, and thank God they're gone. But again, we felt everybody at the training stuff. We put together 12 hours of video training on assay for free on our YouTube. People can watch that. There's countless, and that's the good news. Is we always, duty is not special. We have a special mission, but software is software, AI is AI. And the good news is the training out there. You have unlimited amount of training on YouTube and whatever to get started, and so that we have created a list. So if people want to get access to the list, they can reach out to us. We got a created list of training they can use, but we need to make sure both DAU failed at training acquisition people. CDAO was a disgrace, and DIU was even a bigger disgrace. No one did what they were supposed to do to educate the warfighters.
So as we're wrapping up here, I'll let you take this one.
All right. Do you want to read it for me? Sorry, so I can you read it for me?
Yeah, he said, beyond RAG, we're now seeing a combination of knowledge graphs and RAG forming a KC-RAG
Right.
framework
So
that works more effectively. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so graph is going to be huge. I think you're 100% right. We need to have a stack that's going to be able to consolidate graph and RAG into one more advanced, set of capabilities. We do have integrations to different graph tools like Neo4j and others. If you have ideas, we'd love to hear it, because I think you're spot on. I think that's where you're going to be able to navigate the maze of data, and the graph is going to really help, kind of picking the right set of data, so we know it's all cohesive, and I think it's going to be a key piece to getting stuff done. So I think you're
Nic, I and our audience could listen to you forever. But nice comment from Maxwell. Thank you. A huge show. It's all about the guests. So how does our audience get more information about Ask Sage?
Yeah, so if you want to try it, you go on chat.asksage.ai, and you can create an account for free, and you have a 30-day trial. AskSage.ai, the website, has a lot of information. You want to reach out to us, we have our email, sales@asksage.ai, my LinkedIn, reach out to us. Love to hear from you. We do a lot of events to do demos, to do deep dives. We have one on Wednesday on data analysis on my LinkedIn, and with Karastov. So we're going to do a deep dive on how to analyze data with Sage, Excel, and whatever, right, to really deep dive on your data, which I think is a great use case for most companies, right? Most companies have data. So, and it's a maze of data, and we get lost in it. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a great event on Wednesday, today, actually. It's this afternoon. So, yeah.
Okay, well, to Nic Chaillan and everyone over at Ask Sage, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, thanks so much for who you are and for what you do, and most importantly, for why you do it.
Thank you for having me.
And to our audience, stay tuned for more from the Cyber Hero Adventure Show.